Howdy, howdy, y'all. It is another I Am That episode. Chapter 98, Freedom from Self Identification. Freedom from Self Identification. Pretty standard at this point, especially 98 chapters in. What we're talking about here, right, with Maharaj and Nisargadatta Maharaj, this is all about. We're definitely just and it's pretty much another big. This was a pretty big strike, I would say, of the hammer. If I was to use that metaphor, like this is a pretty good strike. This is. I understand why this is later in the book too. It's very interesting. It's much more the Nisargadatta Maharaj heavy in terms of him talking compared to the questioner. Sometimes you get a lot of questioners talking and stuff, and it's fine. But in this one, it actually starts with Maharaj. He starts out, which is always interesting. And not only does he start out, he goes on for quite a while. But at first, it's a little bit it's like a bit of a warm up. I would say like it's nothing. It's not. I would say it's not uninteresting. It's just they're kind of just going back and forth about like kind of like foundational stuff. The stuff I found really, I think, I wouldn't say just interesting, but like I think worthy of talking about for the review and whatnot is really like first of all, I found really it's like because like actually this is like an 8-page conversation, so the lot was a bit longer than average. And what the points I found interesting were further in. I always find the parts in the conversation further in when they really get going to be interesting. And this is not. This is definitely also the case. So, for example, they go have a back and forth about religion that I found really interesting. Talking about Christianity and comparing it to Hinduism, and then the Sagara Maharaj even just makes it about kind of religion. It's talks about religion itself in general. And it's not that he's not a fan of religion. I think it's just that he is not a fan of just identifying yourself as things in general. So he doesn't like the idea of someone identifying themselves as a Hindu or a Christian or I'm a this, I'm a that. Because the whole spiel about this is ultimately it's we know, and he even says it late in like during this spiel. He says that it's all about negation. That where is it that you cannot be told what will happen, nor is it desirable. Anticipation will create illusions. In the inner search, the unexpected is inevitable. The discovery is invariable beyond all imagination. Just as an unborn child cannot know life after birth, for it has nothing in its mind with which to form a valid picture, so is the mind unable to think of the real in terms of the unreal, except by negation. Not this, not that. The acceptance of the unreal as real is the obstacle. To see the false as false and abandon the false brings reality into being. The states of utter clarity, immense love, utter fearlessness, these are mere words at the present. Outlines without color, hints at what can be. You are like a blind man expecting to see the result of an operation, provided you do not shrink the operation. The state I am, words do not matter at all, nor is there any addiction to words. Only facts matter. And so then this is one another very interesting point right after this. But yeah, with that point even like saying like that's really what it's about. Like in terms of I don't think it's not really necessarily because he even says like after the questioner there can be no religion without words. Maharaj says right after that recorded religions are mere heaps of verbiage. Religions show their true face in action, in silent action. To know what man believes, watch how he acts. For most people, service of their bodies and their minds is their religion. They may have religious ideas, but do not act on them. They play with them. They often are very fond of them, but they will not act on them. So he's just definitely really preaching. Like he's definitely very much preaching like less talky, more doey. you know, action is the way, and which is this is something Lord Krishna talks about. For example, he's very much just up the same way. One ought to do action, even like just one's whatever duties, societal duties of duties as a son, a father, mother, whatever, one ought to do one's duties even. So like Krishna is very much about action, and I think same with the Nisargadatta Maharaj, which is makes sense. And so even like with something like Hinduism, which is even though would technically maybe we which he would say probably yes, this is what if you want to use if you must use these labels, that's probably this is what I am. But the whole point of how he thinks is like I'm just beyond that stuff, beyond the labels, other than just negating that I'm not those things. So that's why I found it really interesting. And that's why I think it's funny people, even this questioner was really thinking like, oh, he just does not like religion. It's much deeper than that. It's just about, that's the whole point of this. Even free, freedom from self-identification, and that includes things like religion, right? And so, once, the questioner says right afterwards, words are needed for communication. Maharaj, for exchange of information, yes. But real communication between people is not verbal. For establishing and maintaining relationship, affectionate awareness expressed in direct action is required. Not what you say, but what you do is what matters. Words are made by the mind and are meaningful only on the level of the mind. The word bread neither can you eat nor live by. It merely conveys an idea. It acquires meaning only with the actual eating. In the same sense, I telling you that the normal state is not verbal, I may say it in a wise love expression in action. But these words convey little, unless you experience them in their fullness and beauty. Words have their limited usefulness, but we put no limits to them and bring ourselves to the brink of disaster. Our noble ideas are finally balanced by ignorable actions. We talk of God, truth, and love, but instead of direct experience, we have definitions. Instead of enlarging and deepening action, we chisel our definitions, and we imagine that we know what we can defy. And that's deeper. That one I like too. And we imagine that we know what we can defy. Like just because we have like this definition doesn't mean like we can define like that concept and idea of like, oh, this is what God is. But can we really know God? Especially if such a thing exists. Our minds can't even phantom such a thing, right? And so, and like he says, things, this is up to the level of the mind, and so things that are up the level of the mind, that's what the mind is for. Kind of no brainer, right? You don't try to use something. If it's for that thing, you kind of use it for that thing. But so that's why I really find, like I said, this is a really good chapter. It's a very deep chapter. I almost feel like I can't almost do it justice just for a simple review like this. It's definitely, and it's very good, I think, about just tying in everything else we've been talking about through this book review experience, book review and the book itself, what it talks about. Like it's all, it really ties in really well. I mean, all the chapters tie in really well with each other too. So that's what I love about this too. Like you can like, if there's like a particular conversation you think, oh, I think this person would appreciate this conversation. You can do that. Like you can definitely share like a conversation, a couple conversations, whatever, with someone to get them like warmed up with this book, and it's for them to start thinking like, oh, this is a good idea. Oh no, I do like this book. Let's I might give it a chance. Especially if they're kind of like right at that cusp, they're kind of like almost there. Share a couple of these conversations with them, and I definitely think they would take interest, and you may not even need to necessarily read the whole book all the way through necessarily. I can see someone just, kind of getting it after, like however many chapters, but like I can see someone just reading part way through and being like, okay, yeah, I get it. For sure. I've been doing it especially for the book review, but I do think it's probably good too. I mean, better safe than sorry just to go through it. I do think it's been good, and like I say, some of these later chapters I think are some of the better chapters too, anyways. So I think if you do stop early, you'll be missing out on some of these later chapters. And so, like I say, like I said, I just like these. It's like some of them because this, especially this one, for example, Maharaj is so like talking so much more than the questioner. So I always find that interesting. Especially it's funny because he's literally talking about how a lot of this is him talking about how words are useless and how you have to act. So there's a sort of funny irony in that, but it's conversation. Or it is what it is. Um, I like this questioner. He asked a good question here. How can one convey experience except through words? Maharaj, experience cannot be conveyed through words. It comes with action. A man who is intense in his experience will radiate confidence and courage. Others too will act and gain experience born out of action. Verbal teaching has its use. It prepares the mind for voiding itself for its accumulations. A level of mentality maturity is reached when nothing external is of any value and the heart is ready to relinquish all. Then the real has a chance and it grasps it. Delays, if any, are caused by the mind being unwilling to see or to discard. Questioner, are we so totally alone? Oh no, we are not. Those who have can give, and such givers are many. The world itself is a supreme gift, maintained by loving sacrifice. But the right receivers, wise and humble, are so few. Ask and you shall be given is the internal law. So many words have you have learnt, so many you have spoken, for you know everything, but you do not know yourself. For the self is not known through words. Only direct insight will reveal it. Look within, search within. Oh, that sounds like a drone going or something. That's fun. But anyways, oh no, it's a street sweeper. It sounded like a drone or something up. Well, it's a street sweeper. Anyways, um, this is just like I said. This is just so deep. I mean, the only part of it I will admit, like asking you should be given. Like there's a part of my brain that's like, oh, that's not how life works. But like, I know what he's meaning. He's not talking about just like, uh, you know, he's talking about like a different state. He's not talking about like average Joes. The people of the, you know, well, I mean average. I mean people who are stuck in self-identification. There's a difference between people who are giving because they're no longer of that self-identification mindset versus people who are also just maybe giving because like they still identify themselves as a person and it just feels good to do so. But yeah, like I say, this is a really good one. Oh, sorry, my dog's coughing. Um, but this is a really good one, a really deep one. Like they all are, of course. I like it because especially he's much more Maharaj. Like he'll do like for every one or few sentences the question may say or ask, Maharaj, will do like a paragraph plus sometimes a few paragraphs of just talking. So this is like I said, if you really like the ones where Nisargadatta Maharaj really starts kind of like is much more heavy towards him, and especially like I say, this is a longer chapter than average. You will enjoy this one, and so, but like I say, it's hard to unless with some particular good. There was another good. Before I end this, one good thing he said too is one point he talked about how like you're still you're still a poor peasant. He didn't use peasant. He used like the another word, but you're still a poor person even if like your begging cup is gold, but you don't recognize it as gold. So like if you're begging, you have like a begging cup, but it's made of gold, and you don't recognize it being such, it doesn't matter. You're still poor because you don't, and that's like about like that's the recognition of within. Like we don't recognize what we have within ourselves, so it's of no value. That's what the whole point of self awareness is in the first place. So I think I'll leave it at that. About 15 minutes. That's good. So, uh, namaste to you all. I hope you all have a good day, and just not don't have too much fun, y'all, and just have a good one. Peace.